Hello, everybody, to the final installment of our Transform Education series for 2015, where we help you transform your practice, patients, and healthcare by adding functional medicine services based on how your patients are adapting to stress. Our network of healthcare professionals use best-in-class education, software, and labs to offer reproducible assessments that show patients their health status and track changes from your wellness plans over time. Through this series, we are continuously learning from each other how to help more people while building large, sustainable businesses. I want you to learn how to integrate functional medicine through standardized 90-day cycles. In case you missed any of these sessions, you can easily find the replays and join the conversation at our website, transformwellness.org. If you have an amazing story or experience you want to share to our network, please connect with me over at LinkedIn. Today, Dr. Annette Schippel is joining us once again for the last webinar in this series with a deeper look into how she's building one of the largest nutritionally focused practices in Illinois. For those of you who do not know Dr. Schippel, she is an expert in functional lab testing, whole food supplements, Western herbs, and endocrinology. She teaches weekend seminars all over the world, and we are so lucky to have her with us today. For those of you who have been following along in the series, Dr. Schippel has taught us all about blood sugar. She has shared her expertise in glandular relationships, lab testing, nutrition, and herbal support for blood sugar imbalances. We are privileged to learn from her vast experience in functional medicine. Welcome, Dr. Schippel. Take it away.
Thanks, Pete. So today I'm going to talk about how to build one of the largest nutritional-based clinics in Illinois. A little bit of that sounds kind of pretentious, so really and truly what I want to share with you is what has worked well for me. And I think I've been at this for a long time, and so I've learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, and if something that I do works and you like the way it flows, then hopefully you'll get that from the presentation today. And most importantly, there's so many things out there. There's so many different ways to do something, and I think when you just find what resonates for you and with you, if you follow through with that, and sometimes it's a little bit of everybody, it might be something that I do, Dr. Bill Hummer does, or Dr. Rhonda does, all of us that have been involved in the Transform Wellness, that you kind of pull together. Because when you are you and you are sincere, it will just come across beautifully and your patients will love it. What I find are my keys to a successful practice, and I think anybody would agree to this, that this is part of how we build it and how we grow. First off, people or patients, they need to know who you are and what you do. And they need to know what you can offer them. I guess a way to look at it is we teach our patients how to view us. So if they view us only as back and neck pain, only as a spine doctor, the next one, be the person you expect them to be. I think this is really important. And now that's not to say that we have to be the perfect weight, we have to be the perfect body type or anything like that. But we have to be willing to do the things that we're asking our patients to do. We can't say, oh, well, this is what you need to do, and then we do the complete opposite. It's just false. It's not. It doesn't ring true, and I think it's more or less presenting a lie. And I mean, you've probably heard the stories where they might go into a primary care physician who is sitting there, with a big old soda or candy or whatever and really overweight and telling them that they need to lose weight. And, really? So you have to be the person we expect them to be. Thirdly, and this seems simple. It seems so simple, but we really need to listen and really listen to their story. Their story is so important. One of my good friends and colleagues, Dr. Michael Petschauer, I remember years ago when I met him, we were talking about doing this work of functional medicine or functional endocrinology. And he was talking about that, your report of findings, that initial visit, and how he just really gives them the time to tell their story. And if you think about it, most of the time they don't get that opportunity. They get maybe 3 to 5 minutes, if that, maybe a little bit longer, but their story is so important. And as we know, when we really listen, we gather so much information. So it's not just for them. It's also for us to have a clearer understanding of where we're going to go, with our patient. The next one, this completely has changed my practice, and that is having a great assistant. I think it's okay to start out doing a lot of it yourself, but as you start to grow, if you don't have that help, you're going to find that growth also stops. At least I found that to be true for me. I wasn't losing momentum, but I also wasn't gaining any momentum. And having an assistant who can handle a lot of the busy work, the leg work, the troubleshooting with the patients, but collecting the paperwork, doing the ordering, putting the orders together, all of that stuff just allowed me to really, really take off. And so I would highly encourage you to have this. And if you're new or it's early on, it could be a part-time person. And as you grow, then they can grow with you. And lastly, communication. Communication is absolutely essential, as well as the follow-ups. That is how we continue to build the relationship that we have with our patient, build that rapport, build the understanding. As you can imagine, when you know something, it seems very simple and very easy to you. But if it's the first time you've heard it, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So can you imagine when our patient gets to sit with us in a report of findings that's going to take about an hour, and it can sound brilliant and can make all the perfect sense in the world, but there's going to be questions later, or there's going to be like, okay, what was it that she just said? So that's part of the follow-up. Continue to build on the foundation, to remind them, to answer questions, and keep the communication open. So I do believe that, and however that looks for you, those are just the bare essentials of what we need to do. Now, how do we get the word out? There's lots of ways now, and I have to admit, I used to be very resistant to utilizing social media. Just felt very awkward to me. And to tell you, that's where my assistant has really come in to help me tremendously. Having someone who can keep up with Facebook and the website, posting things. My job certainly is the public lectures, and I think that that's a great way you can continue the education. And for me, it's not about, do I get some new patients out of it? Yes, but that's not my goal. My goal with it is to educate and let them know who I am and what it is that I do. Another way we can look at this is also reaching out to other healthcare practitioners that either don't want to do the nutritional work, aren't ready to do it, or they don't have the expertise in it. That might be other chiropractors in your town. It could be a naturopath. It might be someone, might even be building a relationship, not so much with a healthcare practitioner, but what about a massage therapist? Something like that, and get them referring back to you. And I always think it's really important. I do have other chiropractors that have referred patients to me. When that happens, my job only is to work with them nutritionally and encourage them to go back to their doctor, to their chiropractor for that treatment, because that's still incredibly important to their health. Or I work with a naturopath in town. I want them to continue working with her besides what I can do for them. For those of us that do this work and are chiropractors, part of the reason we launched into it is because we're realizing that something was missing, that we had a group of patients that were not getting well, that weren't reaching their full potential just with the adjustment, or maybe just with dietary changes. And that's where this functional wellness, functional medicine, functional endocrinology, whatever you want to call it, and that's where that really, really fits in. So you just have to create the buzz. You can put up flyers, you can post it on your website, put it on Facebook, just different things to get it out there. And the cool part is, if you're not used to getting up in front of someone and talking, I know it's a little scary at first. Sometimes it's actually more nerve-wracking for me to be in front of a group of lay people versus the healthcare professionals, which sounds really odd, but sometimes it is. But the truth is, you already know more than they do, and they're just wanting to learn. Even if you're not great at it in the beginning, the more you do it, the better it gets. And you can always create a little handout, have a take-home, like a takeaway. I have another good friend and colleague, Dustin Strong, and he always does that. He gives them like a takeaway of, these are the things that you can take away from this talk and do right away. So just kind of look at that and how you can build from there. And here's here's a look at our Facebook page. Obviously, you're welcome to check it out. But it's nice because, I mean, face it, everybody's on Facebook. And it's kind of funny, since we started doing it, I am on Facebook so much. It's like, oh my gosh, because I used to never be on Facebook, but now, we're doing a lot more posting. We have people following. Also, as a doctor, it gives you a chance to do some blogging, that you could post things on Facebook or post a great article. Maybe you might find some articles, for instance, about sugar. That was part of my series that I did for Transform Wellness. You might have different articles that you could post every week and then lead up into a public health lecture, or you'll find some articles about the immune system. Whatever it is, everything's out there. But use your Facebook, use your website to generate an interest, and then have it lead up to something. Have it lead up to a talk that you want to do. Here's a couple things you might see on my website. Just some pictures talking about a wellness consult. It always gives me a place to softly refer them back to. If they're interested, I'll say, hey, just check out my website, look in there, see what you think. If you're interested, you can follow up. And I actually, in case you guys are wondering, what we did is we used WordPress, and we paid for an upgraded layout. And it's been really easy to work with. It's been really nice. And that might be something you might want to check out if you're looking to make your website a little bit nicer. And it was really doable. It wasn't really expensive. And, check out my website. If you like it, then you might check out WordPress as well. Here's a couple of public lecture flyers that I've used. Obviously, you can see the one is on the 21-day purification. I still will maintain that is one of the single best things I can do in my practice to move someone forward with their health and vitality. And I vary that throughout the year. I do that lecture probably at least a couple times. And then there's another one you can see, Digestion Monopoly, Are You Winning? That was kind of a fun one. And what it was trying to point out to them was give them some Monopoly money, or you could use poker chips. I think the Monopoly money is really nice, but if you didn't have it, you could get some poker chips. And what I did is I started them out with so much money, kind of like starting out with so much beneficial bacteria. And I went through all the things that would disrupt it. Every time they were on antibiotics, they had to give me some money back. What if they were born by C-section? They lost money. And just went through all the different ways that we destroy the probiotics or the beneficial bacteria in our body, and just kind of kept taking their money away. And that was where the playfulness came into it, as well as talking about how do we restore proper balance? How do we restore bowel flora? And it had to be more than just taking a probiotic. We talked about prebiotics and different things like that. And so, and if you like that, use that title. But it's another way to get people engaged when you're doing even the public lecture, so it's not just us droning on about it. Now, patient visit flow, this is just a rough estimate. Because when you first start out, you might find that some of these areas might take you a little bit more time as far as the pre-consult. You might find that takes you closer to 20 or 30 minutes. The pre-consult activities and so forth, that could tie into, you could have your assistant to do it, but if your assistant's not doing it, then it might be you doing it. The report of findings, really try hard to keep that one between 60 minutes to maybe an hour and 15, 75 minutes at the most. I sometimes will hear how a practitioner will spend 2.5 hours on the initial consultation. First of all, they're not going to retain anything probably after the first 30 minutes. So even an hour is a long time. But you take it too long. Got to remember, when it comes to the patient flow, we're training our patients as well. We're training them with expectations. So we don't ever want them to feel rushed. We don't want them to feel like we're looking at the clock. But we also want to, if we tell them that this is going to be an hour to an hour and a half, or this is 30 to 45 minutes, whatever time frame we give them, we really want to stick within that, because that's respecting their time and respecting our time. But this just gives you an idea of a patient flow, and feel free to change it based on your style of practice. Your style of practice could be very different. You might just be using the EndoBalance survey, or you might be doing a lot of lab testing, or maybe you do some muscle testing. So adjust it to the type of practitioner that you are, but I think set it out there with the expectations and then try to stick to it as much as you can. Now the pre-consult activities, this was to give you an idea of what I gather for their initial free consult, which I'm going to talk about more in just a few minutes. Again, my assistant is a contact person. She is the one that gets the basic information over the phone, maybe just a general idea of health concerns, not their whole health history, name, email, address, just how we can contact them if we want to follow up later, whatever we need to do, email or mail the initial paperwork. Obviously, we prefer email, but I have run into a few people, believe it or not, that don't have email. So in that case, we would mail the initial paperwork. It's a pretty basic intake, just a short, health concerns and goals, functional wellness system checklist. And then if they have email, we do the EndoBalance questionnaire. If they don't, then I will send them the symptom survey. And the idea is for me to get a good feel for what's going on with them. So here are how some of the intake forms can look. And we keep all this on file, consent to treat, basic information and so forth. Here's their health concerns and goals. And as you can imagine, some of this would look very similar, health concerns versus health goals. But I want to know where they are at. Where's their head at as far as what they're wanting, what they're looking for? Is it realistic? Is it something that I can help them with? And of course, within the information that I get will also be the completed EndoBalance survey. And I'll have that to look at, and I will also have that to go over them. Now, scheduling the consult, they have to have everything back. We do not schedule anything until we have all the information back. I learned a while back that some people was, oh, yeah, I just really want to get on the books, and yeah, I'll have it all in. And I would be getting the information at the time of their appointment or not at all, and then I've lost that time slot. So the rule in our office is once we have everything, then we will schedule the consult. I do it either in office, over the phone, I do Skype, maybe FaceTime, or you can go into Google Hangout if you want to for long distance patients. It's I think whenever we can see them face to face, I do believe that that's best. If we can't have them in office with us, we can certainly see them face to face. But if it's not doable, I'm certainly not going to turn someone down because I can't Skype with them. And in that case, we'll just be on the phone. But I get the completed intake form, the worksheets, EndoBalance report at the appointment or just prior to. Typically, what I try to do in my office is have everything the day before. Even if it's just a simple, the free See If We Fit consult, I get it the day before just so I can briefly look at it. Remember, the goal here is not to go in depth. It's just to get a good feel for what's going on. So let's look at that one a little bit more. So I call it the See If We Fit. And I may at some point come up with a better name for it, but it just sort of suits me. Because it's an opportunity for me and the patient to see how this is going to go. They've given me their health concerns, and I also have their EndoBalance survey. So I now have an opportunity, one, to show what's going on, what the trend looks like. I get to go a little bit more in depth about their health concerns and goals. But again, this is not to take over for a report of findings or initial consultation. Really, I'm just trying to get a feel for the patient, what they're looking for, their expectations, commitment level. Is it really the right time? And to let them also know what my expectations are, what my philosophy is, and that will also allow them to decide if this is the right time for them right now. I talk about time frames, and I do buffer that because I do a lot of testing in my office, either blood chemistry, saliva testing, hair analysis, GI testing, all of that. And I'll tell them, I say, initially, this is kind of what I feel like, this is what I think, but it could change based on the test results that I get back. You're not committing fully to anything, but you're giving them an idea of what it's going to take. I try not to really get into the testing and the pricing. One, it takes up unnecessary time that I don't have. Two, I don't want to be in the position of discussing money. I really don't. I think it's better handled by my assistant. Sometimes it still happens, but not as much as it probably would have in the past. So I do push that back to the assistant. And I really tell them, I said, they have a choice. Part of this is for them to decide if they want to continue working with me. Some of it is also for me to decide if I want to continue working with them as well. And I think it just gives a better feel. I'm pretty honest in the sense that when they're going to come in to work with me, I'm going to ask them to at least verbally or mentally commit to 6 months. That doesn't mean I'm going to make them sign a contract and they pay me for 6 months, but I at least want them to mentally be there. And that's a pretty big commitment. I'm not telling them that's going to change, but typically the type of patient I attract is a little more complicated case, is not going to be done or recovered in 2 to 3 months. 6 months is pretty fair for us to really get a good jump on things, to really get things moving, and then it will shift and change from there. But at least I can let them know what they need to try to do, because the worst thing that could happen is they decide, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this, and they do the initial consultation, the report of findings, and after a month of taking supplements, they don't continue on. Either they can't, it got too hard, they weren't really ready for it, and that doesn't feel good to either one of us. So I do try to be very honest up front about it, and I think that's very much appreciated. Now, before the report of findings consult, this should be handled by your assistant. I mean, you can do it, but once you get to the point that you're too busy, this is great to have your assistant handle it. You can tell them, write notes, what you need and what you want, but it's getting all the paperwork out, either emailed or mailed to the patient, release forms, test kits if we're going to do them up front. Not always. So that's why I said up to doctor discretion. And again, if you're not doing that kind of testing, maybe you do muscle testing, that's not going to be part of it. Credit card information, I have that on file for everyone. And I think it's just a good idea to always have that. That way we don't, I have no issues then with things bouncing. I don't have trouble with checks. I don't have trouble with getting paid, especially if I'm sending out supplements, it's taken care of at that time. Now, once I get all the completed paperwork and lab work from the last 2 years, the consultation, the report of findings is scheduled and not before then. And I even tell them if they were already complaining about the See If We Fit consult, they had a little bit of paperwork to do, this is going to be a lot bigger because my initial health history is about 27 pages. Plus, I have that endobalance survey that they did. And I tell them, I said, it's because it's really important. Your story is really important to me. And I need you to do a really good job and take your time completing it. It will also kind of tell me the kind of patient that I have. Have you ever noticed if you were going to hire someone, do you hire the person that on the application only filled out half of it? I mean, that would tell you maybe they really don't want this job. So someone that doesn't really take the time to fill out that paperwork, it lets me know that maybe they just don't feel bad enough yet, or they're not taking it seriously. And in that case, they may not be a great patient. I'm pretty upfront about all of this. But again, before the report of findings, have your assistant do it, or this is the little bit of time that you're going to take to get everything out there and collected, and then create a file for that patient. A report of findings, again, 60 to 75 minutes. It just really depends. And sometimes what it depends on is not so much me, but how many questions they have. Sometimes the complexity of the case will take a little bit longer, but I find, it's the personalities. You have the personalities that have a lot of questions, and you have the other personalities that just want to know what they need to do. But generally 60 minutes is good, and I try to allow myself a little bit of a buffer. But at this point, I'm going to go through their health history. I'm going to clarify anything, make any notes that I need to make, look at the symptoms. I can take this opportunity to go back over their report, especially like the endobalance report, remind them where they're at, and talk about where we're going to start. In some cases, we might start off with gut or liver work. We'll look at testing, we'll look at all that, but now I'm going to have a better idea. And of course, this information I have ahead of time. I prefer to have it 2 days before their scheduled appointment, but actually, truthfully, lately, the way it's been, I'm getting this information a couple weeks ahead of time, just due to how far I've had to schedule out. Because remember, they don't get to schedule the appointment until everything has been turned back into us, which allows me to have plenty of time to go through the health history completely, to look at any questions I might have, to write any notes as well. Now, the follow-up consults, I put here 30 to 60 minutes, and that's really going to vary whether it's just a follow-up with no test or follow-up with test results. And this is my opportunity to cement the relationship, to reinforce the lifestyle changes, to go over any questions, look at their progress, because I do expect some progress in that first month. And if they're not seeing the progress that I expect, then I got to look at what do we need to do different, or are they doing everything they should be doing on their end? Because it's quite possible that they're not doing their part. They're not doing their job. And in a few cases, I have done a follow-up in 2 weeks after the reported findings, but a generalization is every 4 weeks. This is your time to, again, build this relationship with this patient. So with that, here are some final reminders. And I want to say, though, I feel very fortunate, very blessed to be able to do what I do and to love it so much, and to watch it just grow. I mean, it's obviously a really good feeling to help people get well. It's a good feeling to be paid for what we do and for what we love, because we all should have that. And I think sometimes that's probably the biggest disservice we might do to ourselves sometimes, especially when we're first starting out. Sometimes I'll run across practitioners who aren't charging anything for their time, or very, very little, or they're overly discounting, product just to try to get people in. And I think we devalue ourselves and what we do and what we have to offer. So with that, we have to be willing to say no. We have to be willing to get better at recognizing those that either we really can't help, and maybe we find a colleague that we can refer them to, or they're just not the right fit for us. I'm still working on that one. Sometimes it's after the fact, but I think the more I do this, the better I get. In that, we also have to be willing not to give up. And that is our reassurance to the patient. If you don't give up, I'm not going to give up. I won't quit searching for the answers. If I don't know them, I'm going to tell you I don't know them, but then I'm going to find out. And that is an absolute breath of fresh air to them, because they have never heard that before. I need to be clear. We all need to be clear about their role in their health goals. This is not simply, I give you the right supplements and herbs and it's going to override all your bad eating habits, bad lifestyle choices, whatever you want to call it. They have to do their part. We cannot override that. And we can't want it more than they do or do it for them. It just doesn't work. We'd like for it to work, because the reason we do this work is because we want everyone to be successful. So at the end of it all, be passionate. Life and work is so much more fun with passion. And when we love what we do and we're passionate about it, I kid you not, it is so contagious. I have to tell you a quick story. I have a patient I've been working with, and she's one of those that is incredibly sensitive. I mean, I even thought I was going slow, and she's even more sensitive than I could even have imagined. And she's also a nurse. So sometimes there's this battle with her as far as, but this is what I've been told, but I know it's not right, and you make sense, and and there's all this going on. And so we started off with this protocol. It wasn't a lot of things, but she had a lot going on. And it was maybe 6 or 7 different things that I wanted her to do, and a couple tonics. And when I met with her recently, I said, all right, we pared it down to 1 tonic and 2 supplements. And while I feel confident that we're going to be able to add some of these other things in later, we just had to really, really pare it down. We get along really well. And she goes, I just love how you can make these 3 supplements sound like the best thing ever, even though you might have wanted me to take 10. And I was like, okay, well, because it really is okay. Sometimes we have to meet someone where they're at. And I know it's not that she doesn't want to do it. She's being stubborn. There's fear, there's reactions. There's just different things going on. But I'm going to be excited for what we can do, not be discouraging or disappointed. And I guess that's really what I'm talking about here. Okay, so when you get this all kind of pulled together and trying to figure out where do you start. So now you have the report of findings, you have their health history, you have maybe old lab tests, you have it all together. First and foremost, if you do testing, decide, is further testing needed? Or do you have enough to go from? I don't do the testing just to do it. I do it if it's necessary, and sometimes I build into the case later. If I feel like A, B, and C tests are necessary right out of the gate, then yeah, I'm gonna tell them that this is what we need. If I can start without that, then I will do that as well. And this is something that we all get better at the more we do it, wherever we're at. And I often say you can always do more. You can always add more in. If your comfort feels starting off very small, very slow, that's fine. And I would even tell my patient, all right, we're going to start here, but if we're stuck or things aren't moving the way I want, then we're going to look at doing some further testing. So again, it's just sometimes it's about finances, sometimes it's about overwhelmment, whatever it is. Also with that, I'm going to look at, choosing the supplements and herbs that work best. That can be based on surveys, the EndoBalance survey, can look at the testing and so forth. So I'm going to choose those and then look at how can I help them with lifestyle recommendations for your patients. And actually, this is depending on where you're at in this place, you could look at these starting points for when you have that new patient, or this could be what you contact me for, how to help you. Well, do you need more testing? What would be the supplements and herbs that I would use? What would be the lifestyle recommendations? Although I find a lot of my healthcare practitioners that I work with, they've got the lifestyle recommendations down. They've got the diet recommendations down. Usually where I find they need some help is navigating the endocrinology, the functional endocrinology, looking at what's ideal and how do we get them there, and maybe, interpreting the testing or deciding if more is needed. The really nice part about reviewing a case with me or Dr. Rhonda, any of us, it's about what you need. It's not like, okay, I have a list of A, B, C, and D that we're going to do every time you consult with me. It's really looking at where do you need the most help. I have some docs who not even sure what testing to start with, or they started with the testing and now they need to know, what am I going to do with this testing? Or they've been doing a protocol for a while and now they're stuck. And the decision is, do we need to do further testing, or how can we change that protocol just to make it a little bit better? So really on this last slide, I know it could have been just what I can do to help you, but it can also help you think about it in the same series that I would. Okay, do I need more testing? What would be the best supplements and herbs? What are the lifestyle recommendations that I need them to do? At least of those top 3. So hopefully you found this useful and maybe gave you some ideas of something that you haven't thought of before. Oh, one thing I wanted to add that I didn't put in here. After they do the initial consultation with me, I've created a patient manual, if you will. And so in that is a binder, has a lot of the things that I've written about, why whole food nutrition, about adrenals, about hormones, about setting goals, talking about the 21-day purification, just general dietary recommendations. I can put supplement tabs in there, so the supplements that I've chosen for them, I can put descriptions of them, their protocol sheet, their testing, all of that. So they get this really nice manual that becomes their reference. And I'm sure not everybody uses it, but those that do use it love it. They absolutely love it. And it's another way for me to provide the education when they're not in my office, or also give an opportunity to say, hey, well, you've been asking a lot of questions about this. Why don't you go back to the tab on why whole food supplements and read up on that, or go to the one about stress, and I can refer them back to it and allow them to do it. So that was one thing I just wanted to add in. I guess that's it. I want to thank you guys for being with me for all of this, and certainly within the whole Transform Wellness series. And it's been a lot of fun, and I wish everybody a great December.
Thanks, Dr. Schippel. That was amazing. Wow, what a run. Over the past few months, we have had 12 webinars that provided us with a look into blood sugar, thyroid, and the management of functional medicine practices. We have gotten to know Dr. Bill Hemmer, Dr. Rhonda Nelson, and Dr. Annette Schippel. We have learned in study groups as well as in seminars. We hope that you have expanded your understanding of how we can transform healthcare into an evidence-based wellness paradigm using reproducible, evidence-based measures and natural products. Next year, we will pick up the webinars, seminars, and group discussions focusing on patient education. We will release details about our upcoming schedule after the holiday. During the break, we hope that you listen to all of the past replays, getting ready for the new year. On a personal note, I want to thank my team at EndoBalance for their hard work getting this series together while continuously working on the software project. I commend you for your hard work, and I am eternally grateful. I also want to thank our speaker network. I understand that you all have busy practices, and it has been an absolute pleasure working with you on this project. I also want to thank those of you who have reached out and participated in this series. It has been great getting to know you and your stories. Now's your chance to ask questions about Dr. Schippel's practice and how she deals with complicated cases. I will now turn it back over to you, Dr. Schippel, to answer the questions. Thank you so much.